Welcome to Building AI Agents After Dark. Hey folks, Chris Steinke here, and for this episode, we're taking it down a notch. We're going to talk about operationalizing. We're going to be talking about making things happen. We're going to be talking about how we take these AI agents and all these capabilities and how we bring these skills to bear for you and your customers in your environment. Now, there's a few different ways that we can do this. I think people maybe have seen some of my previous videos where we have it show a pop-up message or do something like update a record, but there's lots of things you can do. You can do anything really with this Now Assist skill kit with these AI agents, and you can create records. You can run them from flows, which means you can embed them across any part of your instance. And then the last little bit I want to show you is something I've recently come across where we can ask the LLM to format the response to us in something like, say, JSON, and then we can use different scripts or different functions to sort of extract those values. So rather than having to do one or two or three different calls to the LLM, you can do a single call and get it all brought together in JSON and then pull it all apart. So going to be an interesting session today. We're not going to be building an end-to-end product. I'm just going to be showing some different examples of how we've operationalized some of these key capabilities. So sit tight and hopefully you'll enjoy this little bit more intimate session of our build today. All right, folks, welcome back to this evening edition of Let's Build Some AI Agents with Chris Steinke. So what I want to show you right now is our most basic example. When you configure a skill, you put it on a UI action and you trigger it, it is going to create a message. And that message is going to pop up on the screen. And the first time you do it, you're going to look at it like this and say, this is not what I want. This is a JSON message. This is a return response from the model. So it's giving you the bunch of other text that you don't want. You want a nice, clean, simple message. Well, it's easy enough to fix. So I've got my raw response right here. This is the thing that's going to be generated when you create your UI action. And right down here is what's executing your code, right? So all we have to do is clean this up a little bit. And so I'm going to create a new line, and then I'm going to paste in this code right here. We create a new variable called cleaned output, and then we parse that, the skill response. We pull out that info message, and then we also trim out that model output. And then down in our G info message, we're no longer going to send that to the skill response. Can you guess? Can you guess? Of course, we're going to send it to our cleaned output. Clean output. It's going to be so much better, so much nicer, such a more lovely experience for everyone. Now, fingers crossed I did that with no errors. All right, no fat fingers, no typos. Let's go back now and let's see what our new experience is like. This time, when I run this LLM call, I'm asking it to provide some analysis of a semantic concept of the Iliad. And you can see right here, we get a much more cleaned up set of data. It does look like it's also having some backslash characters, so we can also clean those up as well. It's a little bit more complicated, but we should be able to do it right here. So if we actually, let's try this one. If we just take this off, let's see if that fixes it for us. One more shot. Let's see. All right, that did it. That did it. So we didn't need to have that JSON stringify there. It was already a string. It was just confusing things with our strings. But we don't need to do that. So there you go, folks. That is the first example of how to clean up and make that pretty message appear. Again, you just want to clean up your output, pull out the info message, pull out the model output information, and then not stringify it, just put right in your cleaned output. All right, so let's look at the next example. All right, so next up, we're going to show you how to use a LLM skill to update a record. So in this case, I'll show the example of our change test plan composer. This is a skill that looks at the different fields that are available on the change request and then creates that test plan for you based on some conditions. Here is the associated UI action for the change test plan composer. And you can see, again, very, very simple. Here is what you normally start with, right? So this is calling the skill. It's calling that based on the information that's provided up above. That's where it's getting the capability ID, skill config. It's executing those and getting the skill response. Now, once we have the skill response, we're going to do that same thing we did before. We're going to take out that info message and we are going to trim away the model output wording. Then we can take those and we can set those to our current field. Remember, we're executing this from a change request. So current is our changed ticket record. So I can say current test plan. And then I do a little magic here. I am putting in our cleaned output just like we would expect. But what I'm doing is I'm adding at the top the date. So we have the local date and time. I'm putting in a couple spaces, then I'm putting in the output, then a couple spaces, then test plan generated by Now LLM. So it's clear when it was created, and it's also clear that it was created by Now LLM rather than being a human generated text. And then we just do a current dot update, and that's it. So again, in order to update a record with the output from the LLM, you clean up the output to remove the info message, trim out the model. Then you can insert it into a field. You can insert it either directly or, like I did in this case, you can add some notations and other information around it. Then you just run your current update and you are good to go. It is that easy. All right, so let's take a look at this change request in action. I'm going to go ahead and hit change test plan composer. See the magic going? There we go. There is our change test plan. Again, generated from the information in the ticket. It's provided our date and time, provided the system time, just to be aware, and then provides the different details of what we should be doing at each step. So that is it. And it saved the record as well, so it's already saved in there. I don't additionally need to save it. All right, so let's check out our next example. Welcome back, folks. Thanks for staying with us this evening. So next up, we have creating a record. And this use case I'm particularly proud of. There's some interesting stuff that we do in the background. And it's in part based on a use case that Eliza Orchard, who's our outbound product manager for the Now Assist Skill Kit, had created around improving and modifying KB articles. And in this case, I had changed it a little bit. I was working with a client where they had lots of policy documents. So they were documents that were important, but they weren't really written in question and answer pairs. So it was difficult to sort of tease out what the answers were. So I created a very simple skill to transfer those into knowledge base articles. So when you press this button, it takes the article body, it sends it over to the LLM, and it says, hey, recreate these as a series of question and answer pairs. And then it brings the information over here. It gives you a link to the new KB article, and you come over here and here's your information. But now look at this again. You can see that this is in this raw format. So we're going to have to clean it up. And there's actually another way that I clean this up that I think is something that is really an interesting way to approach challenges, especially in things like formatting. So if we come over here and take a look at our skill, this is the skill that's creating the question and answer pairs. And originally I was having it return the output, which is always a JSON. And if it does that, that body field is HTML. So when you're inserting them into a KB article, they don't come with the formatting very easily. If you try to strip things out, it doesn't really work. But what I did is I went back to the prompt and I updated my prompt where I said I want to put it in HTML. So because I am bringing in the, rather than having it deliver JSON and having it deliver formatted HTML, I can now insert that HTML into the body of my knowledge article to make it much easier and a lot less work for me to create it. So think about that as you're creating these skills. Is there a way that you can format it? Is there a way that you can have it change the way it's presenting the data to make it easier for you to process on the back end? So let's go ahead and look at how that processing happens now. Here is my KB record, and the example that I just did is the one that doesn't work. I wanted to show what it would look like without the proper cleanup and formatting. But you can see here is the UI action. And we start with, of course, the skill response, as we have in many other cases, and then we clean up our output by stripping out our info messages, and then this is required in order to strip out things from the HTML, right? Because we don't want that to come in. It makes it much easier for us to visualize and see it. So then we can initialize a new record. And if you were creating an incident, this would be, new glide record incident instead, and then you would be listing out the fields. But this sort of scripting approach is very common, and this is how you create a new record. First, you create a new variable that is a glide record, then you initialize it, and then you start associating different fields with it. And you can see here what I've done is I rename the short description, and then I give it the article text of skill response. Now that was the old one. Now what I want to do is I want to give it cleaned output so that we can see what that looks like now, all cleaned up, all fresh and happy, and looking lovely, looking beautiful. Then we get down to our knowledge base articles, the topic, and setting things like days ago. Now down here, this is how the magic of that link works. We create the article, or sort of insert the new article, and at the same time we're grabbing the system ID of it. And then we use that article system ID down here as we're creating this my link variable, which we then put right into the info message that pops up. Now this part here, this glide servlet URI, this is a variable, it's a system property that exists in your system. And in my case, it's going to be nowassistskills.service-now.com. But the way it works is you can use it as a property to insert into a link, just like this, so that it'll create a link that it knows that it's your instance, or it knows what the URL is. So it can create it dynamically, but always have the correct one. So again, we've started up here where we're cleaning up that input again. Then we're going to start initializing a new knowledge base record. I'm grabbing a lot of the fields from my current record, the knowledge base that I'm executing it on. I'm also inserting new fields of data that I've generated from the cleaned input. Then we insert it, grabbing the sysID, and then we use that sysID along with our glide servlet in order to create a clickable link that we then respond back to the user with. So lovely little circle, lovely little, the circle of life of a knowledge base article. So, all right, we're going to make sure that record is now saved, and we're going to go back to our knowledge base article, and we're going to see what that experience is like this time. So again, I've got this article. This is actually something from our test data from our SecOps capabilities. I'm going to go ahead and hit my conversion. And let's see what happens this time. Looking good, looking good. It's loading well. All right, so we've created it, and what we're hoping to see is a little bit better formatting on that. Oh, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. That's lovely. It's this whole series of question and answer pairs. This is going to be much easier for the knowledge to be consumed, so that when people are coming to the Now Assisted AI search, when they're coming to the virtual agent, when they're asking questions, again, it's much easier to extract it when we have these sort of question and answer pairs rather than just having a policy document that's a series of statements. All right, so we've looked at creating a new record, we've looked at updating a record, we've looked at pop-up messages, and next up we're going to look at running it from a flow, which I think is one of the coolest new capabilities that we have. All right, folks, we're in the home stretch now. Thanks for staying with me. Hopefully, you're all comfy, got all your snuggly pajamas on, maybe having a nice highball or a beer this evening. Now we're going to look at how we can trigger and run skill kit skills from flows. And I think, honestly, this is sort of the ultimate capability, and I'll explain why as we go. So any flow is going to have a trigger, right? Something that's going to set it off. Maybe that'll be running on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Maybe you have it run based on an inbound email, all sorts of things that you can trigger it on. Maybe every time an incident is created, you trigger it. All entirely up to you. I'm just going to say I schedule this one daily. Just to make it easy. Now I want to be able to run my skill. So I can do my skill execution. Let's see, how's my memory doing? Execute skill, there it is, execute skill. And then I can select the skill from down here. Of course, my skills are always other for some reason. And actually, I don't think I activated the one that I had just created. Bear with me one second here. All right, and we are back. So now I can select it. I made a random joke generator just for the purpose of this. Obviously, there's no dynamic input data provided from the action. That's because I haven't created any input data for that action. So we should be okay though. Now it's going to execute my skill. So all this is going to do is execute the skill. We're going to see some output, right? So this is just a simple test showing you how to execute it. I've added it here. Then I can run it. Now at this point, I can do different things if I want to with the data. Here it's just providing the output, which in this case is a joke about Plato's allegory of the cave. Oh, how exciting! How fun! But let's put this back because the jokes are usually not very good. I found, just to be honest, it's not the best at joke telling. So now that I've got this, I can manipulate it in different ways. I can take it, and it's also available over here. So you can see as I execute the skill, I'm going to get my output. I'm going to get my response. So then I could take that response. I could put it other places. I can do all sorts of things with it. So the reason that I think that this is so incredible and important is that you can create a UI action, and you can easily run a skill from a button. But you can also put a skill like this, and you can create a script very easily and add that to a UI action and execute your skill through a flow. Well, what's the advantage of that? Well, now you're using your flow designer. Now all of the performance analytics metrics and analytics and information around the flows, how many flows you're running, how often are they running, how long are they taking, who's consuming the flows, all of that can be very integrated easily into your existing metrics and KPIs that you already have. So I think running it through a flow is a fantastic option, and I think it's going to become much more popular in the future. So this is an example of a very simple one. I had created a more complex flow as part of a use case that I had created the other day and did a short video on. For that one, I was trying to parse out and provide information on resolution notes. So the idea is that someone needs to update some resolution notes. They want to improve the resolution notes that are being done by their staff. So we're sending those resolution notes over to the LLM. We're asking it to improve them and then send the information back. And in this case, there were two things that I wanted to get out of it. I wanted to get a score, but then I also wanted to get a explanation of a recommendation of what are the things that we could do. Now, I liked how this was put in place for a few reasons, and one of those is that in this case I used a JSON object. I asked the LLM to respond in JSON. So normally, if you would have asked me a couple months ago, I would have said, well, you need to do 2 LLM calls. You need to first ask for a score, then you need to ask for a recommendation. But here in this example, I've asked for both at the same time, and I've requested that the LLM respond with the information formatted in a JSON. And because it's formatted in a JSON, it is really easy for me to pick that up and extract it and do all sorts of things. So here I'm going to show you the skill, and again, the important part is I've told it to create a JSON object using the following 2 keys. I've given it a format. Note that the recommendation is a string, so it sets it up so that it's a string rather than an array. I'll run the test and you'll be able to see here it's going to create that JSON object. Now this is the what I would receive back from the model, and that is what I can process now over in my flow. So in the flow, when we execute the skill right here, this is what is executing that specific results improvement skill, and we're doing a for loop in the flow so that it cycles through a whole series of incidents. But the really cool part, the magic that I want you to see, is down here, and this is an action. So this is called the parser resolution nodes helper, and this is taking that raw big JSON object and it's removing all the junk for us again. So if you remember in just the previous examples as we were looking through those, there was a lot of junk that we did not need. There was a lot of text and slashes and all sorts of things. And in this case, we're taking a JSON object, we're going to separate it out. And how do we do that? Well, I've created a action, and this is just a very simple action that's just going to run a couple script steps. The input to the action is that JSON object, but I have defined it as a string, and then we just run this script step. And so what it does is it parses the JSON response. So it parses the initial response. Then it parses out the model output from it. Remember, we've asked it for a JSON object, so it's parsing it in again. And then we set our outputs to that inner JSON, to the model output that we had set it to. So again, starting with the outer JSON, we parse it, and then we parse the inner JSON with our model output. And within that, we've embedded the keys for recommendation and score. So then we set the recommendation and we set the score as the outputs. Now, you're not done yet. You have to set those as outputs as well. So you need to create the 2 outputs, the 2 action outputs. You would just create these as new outputs. And then you just drag over the outputs from your script step. It's as simple as that. Again, create your inputs, which is going to be your JSON, your script step, create your outputs, create your inputs and your outputs for your script step as well. Don't forget those, very important. And then create your outputs, and then you're done. And what happens then is you'll see if we go ahead and run this as an example, it then is going to run that script step, and you can see out of my script step, I'm going to get some these variables are going to come out, my recommendation and my score, and I just drag those into my update records, and I'm done. So again, what we're doing is we're executing the skill from the flow, and the big benefit of that is we can, rather than just running it off of a UI action for a single record, I can set it up so that I can run it for all the records that were closed yesterday, or all the records in the last 2 months, or any other large set of data that I want. Then I run a for loop where we execute the skill. As I'm executing the skill, it's then providing me with JSON formatted output with multiple keys in it, which I'm passing to my parser script step, which is parsing that out for me, spitting out those data values back for my update incident record, and we can just write those into the fields that I had created on this particular incident. So what does that all look like in action? Let's go ahead and take a look. We'll run it. Let's run this test here. Fingers crossed, it should run. Ran not too long ago just fine, so expect it to be okay. Let's see. I believe in you. I believe in you, Flow. I know that you can do it. You're a lovely Flow. You've been created with care, kindness, time, energy, more time, some more time. I may not have limited the inputs this time. Oh, we're done. All right, fantastic. Let's see how many it ran. It did 20. It did 20 records, so that's why it maybe took a little bit of time. So again, each one of those represents an LLM call that was done against the skill, where it was sending the resolution notes, getting the information back. Then it was parsing that all up and copying it and updating the source record again with the information. So a great end-to-end process that's showing us how to run it from a flow, but also how in the flow action in our parser, we can go ahead and just with some very simple script steps, we can parse up that JSON output to extract the fields we want to and then pass them back to the flow. So next up, let's look at how we do this with a UI action. So again, it's the same sort of capability, except now we want to run it from a UI action rather than from the flow. So the script is going to be slightly different, mostly the same, not too different, just a little different. And here is our resolution notes improvement capability. And when we click down into there, now in this case, with the flow, we were using an action to update the record. With the UI action, you're actually going to update the record within the script itself. So if we come down here, once it loads, we'll come down here and take a look now. Our payload is our incident, and you can see down here, just to make it a little easier to read. So first, we trigger the skill, right? We've got our capability, we've got everything we need right there, and it's going to trigger the skill for us. Then we're going to clean the output, right? So we have to pull the information out of the output. We are going to clean up that info message and get that out of there. And then we're going to take our model output. Now, normally we'd strip out this information. Normally we'd trim it out or get it away so that it's not in the message. But here we want to parse it because remember, we've created the score and the recommendation, or rather we haven't done it. We've asked the LLM, who's been very kind and friendly enough to generate the data in the format we need. And now we can take that model output, we can parse it into our myJSON object, and then we can use that. We can just do a myJSON.score, myJSON.recommendation. You could ask it for many different elements or many different keys within a JSON and easily parse those out and use the data in the instance. But that's it. Then I set them to my two fields that I created, and then I just do a current update, and we're done. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like right now. We'll go ahead and try to pick up an incident ticket. And it looks like I'm picking ones that have resolution scores, so we'll go ahead and find one that does not have a resolution as of yet. You can see I've been busy over here. We'll filter out those ones so we get a decent example. Oh, cart services again. And I just want to open up this record, and we'll see at the very top we'll have our new awesome resolution notes improvement, and let's see what's going to happen. So I've created the fields over here. We can see the resolution information is here, not very much to it. Now when I hit my resolution notes improvement, again, all that magic is happening in the background, getting the information from the LLM and writing it back into the field, stripping out all of that junk text, all that stuff that we don't need to see, that no one wants to see, and creating this beautiful little incident resolution notes recommendation for some agent out there and some manager who only want to improve customer service for everybody. So thanks, folks. Again, we've walked through a bunch of different interesting and fascinating capabilities. Again, the focus was on how we operationalize these Now Assist AI agents. You can, again, pop-up message, you can update records, you can create records, you can run them from flows, you can give it JSON, you can have it give you HTML, you can put them in UI actions, you can put them in flow actions, you can really do anything. So again, thanks again for joining us for this evening's episode of Building Random Stuff and AI Agents, and thanks and have a great evening. Bye, folks.